Jay, thank you so much for joining us today. As we start, can you say a few words about your current role and what's in your purview?
Yeah, currently the VP of Worldwide Sales at runZero. We're a cyber asset management company. Um, I currently run all things revenue, so that includes pre-sales, pre-sales engineering, post-sales, customer success, renewals, channel sales. Like really, if it touches a customer today, it's under my purview.
I understand. So that kind of paints the picture of where you are right now. But if we were to plot the trajectory of your career, how did you get into cybersecurity sales?
Yeah, really interesting. So I started out, this is like my third career. I actually, right out of high school, I worked in retail grocery for about 6 years. I ran a store, had about 160 people that reported up to me at any given moment, 7 or 8 different departments. So I was a young 20-something-year-old running a grocery store. It was pretty, I don't know why they gave me the keys, but nonetheless, it was a cool experience. From there, I pivoted into finance. I knew that retail grocery was probably not my future forever. So I went out and learned finance, eventually got my Series 6, my 7, started doing everything from financial planning to eventually doing trust and estates for JP Morgan Chase in the private bank. Towards the end of my finance career, I did that for almost 9 years. And really just, tech was super interesting. Being in Austin, it was everywhere. It was something that I always thought could be a really cool career path. Didn't quite know how to get into it. So like many people's, I knew a guy and he was able to get me an interview with a company. And I pivoted over. That was an oil and gas SaaS company, actually, and to kind of learn everything about that world, which was really interesting and complex. I did that for a couple of years, but not really for me. So I ended up landing in a company called Duo Security as a next role. And that's when I got hooked on cyber. It was then that I knew, like, this is probably what I want to do with the rest of my career, or at least make a nice long run into it. Just learning how things work on the internet, that there are bad people on the internet and they want to do bad things to businesses and to people. And there was a real call to get involved and learn as much as I could. So that's how I got into cyber sales.
Amazing. So you have quite a unique experience and perspectives from both more B2C world with retail and with technology, and then cybersecurity sales. It's interesting that we talk to a lot of people in kind of in sales executive roles, and it's almost never one track. It's always somewhat winding kind of way of getting to the executive role in sales. But I think that gives you a fairly unique perspective on things, on how the businesses are run. And also, I mean, Duo, I think there was an acquisition at some point, right? It was acquired by
Acquired by Cisco.
And now I noticed that you have a co-founder sales in your bio, which is also fairly unique to go from a large organization to kind of the founding sales executive role. Is fairly unique. So from your vantage point, for someone who's just joining cybersecurity sales, maybe they're kind of more junior in their career and their journey, or maybe even in college, just looking at the space and trying to figure out how to make a career out of this, what would you recommend to those folks? I mean, what would be like top 2 or 3 things in your view that should focus on to stack the deck in their favor?
Yeah, I mean, I always think that it's easier to land to a large company. Like, give you an example. When my kids were in elementary school, they had an after-school care, and they loved this guy that ran the after-school camp. He thought about becoming a teacher, wasn't sure what he wanted to do with his life, but he liked kids, so he was literally running an after-school program for my kids at one of the high school, or at one of the elementary schools around here. He had a cousin, said, "Hey, I think I could probably get you a job at Dell. Are you interested?" So he hopped over to Dell to become an account manager for Dell, right? Like the thing with large companies like Dell or Oracle or Cisco or any of those, that they're generally in a position to be able to take a risk. Early stage startup, not quite so much. It's really hard. You have to look for people that are proven out, that you can really deal with, like, the hard things that come with startups, like building processes and landing your first couple of customers and learning from those customers. Like you have to grow into that kind of a role. And so I think coming out fresh, that's one way to approach it. I think that if you're coming out of college, like it's not uncommon for somebody that has a good SDR, BDR program to be able to take somebody, plug them into the machine and help them learn. That's a more traditional track that I see people start in SDR and then go to SMB and then, you know, go into mid-market. And if they want to, you know, lead up into enterprise sales or something like that, that's a pretty simple track. It's tried and true. But I think you're going to be looking for your like C stage or later companies typically for that type of a role. I also think that if you know someone and you can get a really good look at what the work is going to be, you should do that first, because depending on what stage of a company you land in, your experience is going to be vastly different. You know, especially if it's in cybersecurity, this is a crowded space. I mean, every single person solves your exact problem. Like every company you talk to says, oh, we stop breaches. Well, how do you stop breaches? Well, we stop breaches in this very unique, specific way. And it's one way to stop a breach, but that's not really necessarily the marketing. So if you're just getting into the industry, you've got to understand that it's super crowded, and that I would highly recommend, you know, talking to somebody that you know that's in the space. If you do know anybody, do a lot of research, find out the company that you want to join. There's these days it's a cheat code. You've got Glassdoor, you've got all sorts of review sites to see what the company is like. You got look at Crunchbase. I mean, I highly recommend looking at Crunchbase, like seeing what type of funding they have. If you're new to the VC world, you may not know the recognizable VCs, but really do your research and see if there is a big enough name on there. Like, you know, Greylock. Well, they've had a few pretty successful exits, I'd say. So, you know, Greylock's an early stage investor. It's probably something worth paying attention to.
Or like Inside Partners, I think also they back quite a few. It's interesting. So it's interesting that you mentioned that sometimes joining a large organization, they're more likely to take a chance on you if you're more junior, and also versus kind of an early stage startup. I think it's very interesting. And also it sounds like knowing a guy will go a long way. So networking probably is a good way to kind of not even maybe get a job, but to your point, to get a look over someone's shoulder and see if it's something that you can see yourself being excited for a long time, because I think it's really kind of a long-term kind of play, not very transactional. That's great. So switching gears a little bit, you mentioned there's so many different departments reporting to you, pre-sales, channel. So it sounds like your channel is part of your go-to-market strategy, but it seems in sales, in B2B sales in general, and cybersecurity sales in particular, I think there are certain themes that are some ideas that captivate everyone's mind once in a while. For a while it was inbound, more kind of marketing than sales, but inbound was one thing that everyone talked about, thanks to Hotspot, I guess. Even though few people know they have a very strong outbound group, very, very aggressive, very robust at the time. Then it was large scale events, Black Hat, RSA, Gartner. It was all about sponsoring Evanta, putting a lot of money and getting kind of face-to-face reps. Then with COVID, this went away. It was all virtual webinars and whatnot. I think now ChatGPT is on top of everyone's mind. So I don't know if it's like the shiny penny syndrome or what have you, but I guess more strategically, what's working for you now? What way of thinking, what point of view can you share that, or maybe tool in your toolbox? What's producing results for you right now?
Well, I will say channel is working well. I mean, I think with any go-to-market strategy, if you zoom out a little bit, truth is it's a little bit of everything, right? It is a little bit of events, right? It's a little bit of doing webinars. It's a little bit of finding the right partners. For us, channel is really front and center. We had about 70 deal registrations last quarter. That's up from 20 deal registrations the quarter before that. And we weren't doing much tracking on it before that. So we're seeing a big spike there. I think that's in part to doing in-person events, but it's also having a good, strong CAM team that is doing the outbound and is recruiting the right partners and telling the right stories. I think that is, for this area of cybersecurity that we sell into, that's not totally cloud focused, that's not all cloud native, that still has a lot of physical infrastructure, which is what we scan for, then they buy through the channel. You know, many of them have a relationship with a longtime VAR. Maybe it's a longtime account executive that's hopped from VAR to VAR and they still continue to buy from them. So got these long-term relationships. So when we educate them on what we sell, and they see how easy it is, I mean, there's very quick time to value. It's a nice additive to the existing security stack. We've seen a lot of partners latch onto that. The other things that are working is, well, I should say working, we're exploring right now is starting to host webinars. We have a good partner in Carasoft. We're launching our first webinar next month on BOD 2301, which is a cybersecurity initiative from CISA, about actively scanning your entire network once every 7 days. So there are some good initiatives that we've latched onto that we've seen some production from. I think also we have a free trial, and it's not for everybody. I understand lots of companies want to gate their software. The value of our software is that it's super easy to install and you get results really, really quickly. So we've left that completely open. In fact, even most recently, we took away the ability to have to even sign up. Now you just put in your Gmail, you get sent a link, you click, you're off to the races, and you can start scanning your network. Many of our customers also came from that same workflow where they scan their home network, said, whoa, this is solving a huge problem that we've had at work for a very long time. They take us into the corporate environment, set up a trial, scan it. For us, that's worked especially down market, where we're selling to the practitioners in our mid-market and upper SMB. Those practitioners love the tool. So why gate it? We just open it wide open and want to get it in as many hands as possible. We also have a free version that's free in perpetuity for under 256 assets. For us, that's helped with some of our larger sales too, because we've even had some of our customers refer back to saying, hey, that 256 free tier, we have a lot of supply chain vendors that are really, really small businesses and don't have a ton of assets, but we do need them to be secure so it doesn't disrupt our supply chain or we don't get ransomware. So there's some, I guess, like cyber goodwill going on, at least on that front, that we're not charging for that portion of the sale.
It makes a lot of sense. It's almost like this concept of PLG, product-led growth. It's I think it's certainly percolating through business B2B environment, technology environment, and I think there are quite a few success stories, and it's interesting to see that it seems, I don't know if you kind of fully embrace it, but it seems like it's providing a free version and then going from single uses here and there, putting a kind of bringing it into the corporate umbrella, and it's such an easy upsell if you already have your product in the hands of end users and you have a kind of raving fans already, that it's such an easy sell to go to like a CISO, to go to CTO, say, hey, half of your company is already using our product. Do you want support, or do you want proper licensing on top of that? It's such an seems like a no-brainer. If your product lends itself to that, I think not to your point, not every product lends itself to this kind of sales motion. Awesome. So again, switching gears for thinking of think of the future. Imagine you have a crystal ball and you can see what's going to happen 6 months from now, 12 months from now, and that kind of time frame for senior sales executives, chief revenue officers, VPs of sales, cybersecurity companies. In your view, what some of the themes that maybe are prevalent now, but will still be prevalent in that time frame, or maybe what some of the things that are emerging there that you think will be top of mind? What are two or three things that will be top of mind for CROs, VPs of sales in 6 to 12 months? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting how the next couple of quarters play out for everybody. It's been a really interesting, let's say, year and a half now, where we started to see some friction in the market probably in May, June of last year. Ended up having a decent quarter in Q4. But, I think everybody's feeling that it's an uphill battle. I think the couple of things that everybody will be asking themselves is, one, this is the question I ask myself constantly, is the data in my CRM correct? Do we have a good handle on forecasting? Do we really understand our weighted pipeline? Those are like the things that I'm going to be probably neck deep in over the next few quarters. Also hyper focused on churn and contraction, and trying to get those to respectable limits. If they're not respectable limits, if they do look good now, being hyper focused on your customer. I mean, I think if there was one North Star thing that everybody's going to be talking about, if they're not already, it's hyper focused on your install base, making sure your customers are happy and continue to getting value out of your product. Because we are entering a stage, especially in cyber, of vendor consolidation. You could make the argument that sometimes that's always somewhat prevalent. But I've talked to security leaders that have over 125 different products in their security stack. They don't like that they have that many. And so they're trying to figure out, how do I consolidate down? Certainly there's overlap with all of these different tools. So I think it will be very much about defending your position in the install base, so that you're not out with the consolidation practice. But I really think that, like, anchoring, this is my third or fourth downturn that I've sold through. So I've seen this movie before. And I think that right now it's not just that, you still want to grow in markets like this. You still have to figure out a way to grow. But I think it'll be all about the install base and trying to keep your customers happy. Also, for anybody that's been, selling for any length of time, it's a faster path to revenue with your customers, right? They've already taken the first step to give you some dollars, give you some trust. And if you can lean in on that install base and go for expansion business, go for upgrade business, continue to show value to your customers, I think everybody will come out on the other side of whatever this market is in a much stronger position to go grow.
Makes sense. It's interesting because we just came, I came back from RSA a few weeks back, and vendor after vendor, the feedback is there's pressure on the deal sizes, and the sales cycles are getting longer. That's kind of the theme that we heard in multiple conversations. So it seems like it's certainly a sign of a little bit of headwinds down the line, and a little bit more challenging economic environment. It seems like, I mean, definitely not judging by the number of sponsors that are saying, the size of the booths and the parties. It seems like a lot of vendors still kind of leaning quite a lot on large scale events like this. But it seems like going forward, to your point, it sounds like more people will be thinking about playing defense and protecting their existing client relationships, and minimizing churn, and working to upsell and cross-sell the clients that they already have, rather than expanding aggressively. And because I think if the sales cycles are longer, you'll end up spending more on your tools, on your team, with less output. It's certainly something that it seems like will be playing out. As we're coming up on time, Jay, what's the best way for people to reach out? What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, generally on LinkedIn, Jay Wallace VPS, after LinkedIn. Following runZero, I'm always reposting things that we've put together. Also, jay@runzero.com is the best email to get a hold of me at. I do, though I have a busy schedule, I do try to find time, especially for younger sellers and people that are really earlier into the sales game, especially around cyber. If I've got the time, I do give a fair amount of time to young people that are really trying to get engaged in the community and try to understand more logistics. I've done lots of calls with people that I didn't know, that I got connected with through, a friend of a friend, because as you mentioned earlier, everybody needs to know a guy or a girl in this sense. And if I can help in any way on somebody's journey into sales, it's not super easy. It can be a really difficult thing to do. And especially when you're new, there's just so many things that you don't know. So always feel free to shoot me a note if you want to try and find some time, and I can help maybe give you some guidance. I'd be happy to do it.
Great. Jay, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.